7 students from the Detroit public school system have brought a lawsuit against the school system for failing to develop their ability to read. What does it mean, and how might it have widespread influence? Stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm Leah Hall from Literacy Teachers, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to inspire, motivate, and change how your students read and write for academic success. If you're new here, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about what is going on in Detroit. Now, if you're familiar at all with the Detroit public school system, then you know that the system itself has been in shambles for years, and a lot of the buildings are grossly inadequate for just being in, let alone trying to learn in. And today we're going to be talking about the 7 students from the Detroit public school system that are suing Detroit public schools because they were not taught to read, okay? And I'm going to be giving you a little bit of background on this, talk to you a little bit about the statistics and the data, and compare Detroit to the state of Michigan, and then also compare Detroit specifically Michigan as a state, nationally, how are students doing in terms of their literacy development, and then giving you my take on the whole thing. So first of all, what's going on? As I said, there are 7 students that are suing the Detroit public school system because they have not been taught to read in a way that's greater than being functionally literate, right? If they're lucky, they are functionally literate. It is a class action lawsuit filed against the state of Michigan, and it asserts that learning to read is a fundamental constitutional right, and that this constitutional right was violated within the state of Michigan and by the Detroit public school system. Now, there is a 100-page complaint. I've taken a look at it. I'm going to link to it in the show notes so that you can look at it. The complaint says that it says a lot of things that are worth taking a look at, but specifically for this video, it says that students were not provided the instruction and opportunities that they needed to develop their literacy abilities, all right? And so, like I said, that's going to be linked to in the show notes, so you can take a look at that closer in your own time. Now, when we think about this, you know, the report said that 90% or more of the students in these schools within Detroit, right, where they're filing the lawsuit, that those students, 90% or more of the students in those schools are below proficient. And what does that mean? Well, we want students at a minimum to be proficient in terms of their reading and literacy abilities. And proficient just means that students meet or exceed grade level standards in reading, right? So what it means to be proficient as a first grader is obviously very different than what it means to be proficient as a 4th grader, an 8th grader, 12th grader, right? So on, you get the point. So, you know, as a nation, and historically, we've never really done really well with developing our students' abilities to read. So what I did was, after I looked over the complaint or the news articles, I went to the nation's report card, right? I looked at the NAEP data. There is a NAEP results from 2017. I will link to that as well so that you can take a look at that, and you can look at all the other NAEP results from years past if you wish, and I strongly encourage you to. And so I started off by saying, okay, well, at the national level, what does our ability to read look like based on these 2017 data set from NAEP? So nationally, 65% of our students are below proficient. What that means is that 65% of our students that took the NAEP nationally, right, all across the nation in different contexts, they do not possess the skills that they need to meet grade level standards, right? So already we're grossly failing students across the nation. You know, on the flip side of that, it means that on the national level, 35% of the students tested meet grade level standards, right? They can do what they need to do to be able to perform with reading and writing at their grade level for their age, okay? Now in Michigan, initially, this looks very similar to the national level, right? Because in Michigan, 64% of the students that were tested in the state of Michigan as a whole are below proficient, okay? So again, the national level, 65% of students are below proficient, okay? And in Michigan, 64% are below proficient. So while we have this problem, I would say nationally, right, Michigan doesn't really perform too much better or too much worse when we look at it specifically. But when you look at Detroit, because there are NAEP data results for reading in 2017 for Detroit specifically, 93% of those students are below proficient. That means that 93% of the students that were tested in Detroit public schools do not have the literacy skills that they need to read and meet the reading demands at their grade level, okay, for their age, all right? That means that in Detroit public schools, only 7% of those students that were tested meet or exceed the skill set that they need for grade level standards. And I don't care how you slice it, that is grossly inappropriate, right? How do you explain that, okay? Now, I'm not coming down on schools. I'm not coming down on teachers, because there is all kinds of funding inequities that's going on in Detroit, right? The buildings aren't being maintained. Teachers aren't being able to get the supplies that they need to be able to do the job that they do. Teacher pay and benefits, salaries, all this stuff. That is a huge issue that is contributing to this. So I am not in any way saying that this is the fault of teachers. I'm also not saying it is the fault of families. What I am saying is that we really need to look at what is going on in Detroit in terms of how the public schools are being run, how the money is being spent, how resources are being distributed, how teachers are being treated, and the conditions that students need, right? The conditions that students are being put in and expected to learn in. Because if you can do a quick Google search, you will see they are completely inadequate for learning, okay? They probably shouldn't even be in some of those buildings, honestly. I applaud these children for stepping forward and for doing this lawsuit, because some kind of attention needs to be brought to Detroit specifically. And my hope is that it will bring attention to the national level and to think about how we are using our resources for equitable education, and how we're treating teachers and giving teachers, the skills and the tools and the respect and the salary that they need to do their job well, okay? Now, in no way can a teacher fix students, right? Throwing more resources at students doesn't always solve the problem. But if you pull those out, right? If you leave buildings crumbling, if you give students inadequate education, if you give teachers inadequate resources, if you don't put systems in place to hire and attract and retain outstanding teachers, then this is a problem that's going to persist, not just in Detroit, but nationally. All right, so thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all of my videos. Please head down to the comments. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going on in Detroit. I would love to hear your opinions, your thoughts about what we can do in Detroit specifically, what your thoughts are about this lawsuit, and how we can think about improving our education so we can close the achievement gap, increase equity, increase access, improve teacher hiring and retaining high quality teachers, giving teachers the respect that they deserve, so that we can inspire, motivate, and change how students read and write for academic success.